Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Zagreb, Croatia event of the Grand Chess Tour. This is a Rapid and Blitz tournament, and this tournament features none other than Magnus Carlsen and world champion GUKESH, who ended the day yesterday by playing against each other, and GUKESH won his second game in a row against Magnus. As always, it's a big story. And today, we end the Rapid portion, and we see who is going to be crowned the champion of the Rapid, moving into the Blitz. Unfortunately, in this tournament, you don't win separately. It's not like you can win the Rapid, and then a Blitz is a separate tournament. You have to play it all together, but I digress. GUKESH has won 5 games in a row. Magnus, yesterday, after losing to GUKESH, gave an interview, said he's not feeling the flow, not enjoying playing chess as of late, and we're going to see if he's able to launch a comeback. Because every time Magnus is wounded, he seems to perform even better. We are still waiting to see when Magnus is actually going to lose enough consistently that we say there is a passing of the torch. But we're going to be waiting quite some time. So, first things first, I'm going to kick things off with the move e4. This is a rapid game between Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. The last game that I will be showing you today between Magnus Carlsen and Nishgiri, absolutely insane game. This one was over 100 moves long. We've got a game by GUKESH. We have a game by Fabi against the local hero. Let's go. Magnus opening the games today with the Caro-Kann defense, d4, d5, an advanced variation from Fabiano, one of the best. My Caro-Kann cores, by the way, for intermediate and advanced players, even beginner players, absolutely fantastic. It's on Chessly. People who learn the Caro-Kann and learn it well gain hundreds of points. I'm not sure you're ever going to get to the Magnus level. Fabi now plays knight d2, knight b3, which is one of many systems. This is a very positional approach. It's a master type of approach. You don't let black play c5, which is why he then prepares with a few moves and plays c5. Anyway, obviously white has good control in the middle. He wants to put a knight on d4, but another thing that he wants to do is just hold it, you know? And Magnus had to commit the knight here instead of putting the knight on the far more natural square of c6, h6, and now Fabi's like, okay, I'm going to castle. Magnus shuts the door and plays like this. This is going to be a very long, complicated game. White has a space advantage pointing in this direction, so probably he's going to move his knight out of the way and begin a pawn attack. It's quite clear Magnus is going to rely on the play here. He's not going to get into a counter-attacking battle. That is not where he is stronger. So we have knight to e1. Knight to e7, and now Fabi plays an interesting move. Like, as far as I'm concerned, you know, these are the best moves. But he plays knight c2, simultaneously preventing any advancement here, but also maybe moving the knight and supporting a pawn advancement. Magnus moves out of the way. Now, if you just look at this position, you just pause here, you're like, this is odd for black. I mean, all his pieces are passive. The bishop is blocked, and it feels like all of the momentum is with white. But Magnus does this. He plays h5 here. And h5 is a super provocation. Super provocation. It disallows g4. He definitely felt like the pressure was there. You cannot take this pawn because the bishop would take the knight, opening up an attack on the bishop, which is protected by the queen, but would have to take the knight. You saw all of that. And if you didn't see all of that, then here's a drawing of a... Is that a parallelogram? I think so, right? Yeah, I think that's... It kind of looks like a trapezoid, but here we're not going... Yeah, anyway, I don't remember. G3. You guys remember that because you're in school. Bishop takes c2, queen c2, and this is the setup that Magnus chooses. This is going to be a very long game. He trades off his light squared bishop. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. You don't have to... Every single pawn for black is on a light square. 7 out of 8 pawns for white are on dark squares, so it's a very fascinating battle. White is going to try to prove superiority, dominance on the light squares, and black is going to try to not get absolutely obliterated on the light squares. So, knight f3, knight f5, bishop d2, bishop e7, both guys developing their pieces, king g2. King g2 is an aggressive move. I know it might seem like the white king is just sort of awkwardly stumbling around the castle with his pants off, because I imagine that's all kings do. But no, the idea is to defend the g3 pawn and to go h3, g4, kicking out the knight. Magnus senses that time is running out, which is why he strikes back with h4, and on g4, jumps into the white position. This is the only piece for black that has really crossed the center line. I mean, yeah, there's this pawn, but I mean pieces, and probably you will take the bishop, right? No. We're just creating play on that side of the board. This game is a mess. Magnus is using an aggressively posted knight to defend against the f5 advancement. Fabi moves the bishop out of the way, but it's actually Magnus who is arriving first into the white position asking certain questions. Yet white is still better. White is still better because white has a space advantage, white has better piece coordination, etc. Queen c1, queen d7. It's a very patient game. Rook e3. I can't explain any of these moves. Maybe something is going to go to the e1 square. Rook b8. Bishop e1. Okay, I just said that. I'm really clever. I mean, I saw the game, but I'm also really clever. We're trying to remove the knight, so that's exactly what we do. The knight goes to the middle. Now we are trying to remove the knight again. Now Magnus says, okay, if you want to remove my knight on e4, it's going to cost you time. It's also going to cost you the light squares. It's also going to cost you an infiltration, which is why in this position, Fabi decides first to defend the queen side, and now we're going to have a couple of trades here, except on the 28th move of the game, like we teach all beginners, we have castles. Queen d1. Rook b2. That's considered a miss, but it's equal. Position's equal. Rook b2. Rook b2. Knight b2. Queen e2. Rook b8. Magnus has broken through. He's broken through. Left side of the board, he is now infiltrating. At the cost of a pawn. The pawn on h4 collapses. Now here, the computer really loves g5, but Magnus goes here, and I mean, it's very clear. Both knights are anchored. The rook is coming down. The queen is also going to infiltrate. Not immediately, but you get my point. The comeback is upon us. Is Magnus going to sweep all his games today and catch up to Gukesh? Rook into b2 check. Rook back to e2? Maybe not. Fabiano doing an excellent job defending this position. Knight back to f3. Magnus is making as many improvements as possible to the position. Like, if he gets the queen here, wins this pawn, he's going to be making a queen. But Fabiano on the counter attack with only 30 seconds on the clock. 3:47 for black, 30 seconds for white. Magnus has had good positions in this event, but he's somehow not put games away like usual. And I don't know how he's going to be putting this game away. And before you know it, he's also not feeling so comfortable here. Down a little bit on time. Queen h3 check, king g7. Fabi has ideas here like going f5. He can go f5. I think even a couple of moves ago, like in this position, he could have gone f5. Launching some sort of attack. If black had taken, the pawn would have been weak. It would have been, you know, capturable with some attacking possibilities. But obviously, it's a huge time scramble. Magnus now walks his king to the complete other side of the board, and the Fabiano position falls apart. The king is safe in the middle. Every pawn collapses. Ultimately, this pawn is going to be the deciding factor. There it is. And now black is cleanly winning due to his queenside counterattack, due to his advancements. Queen f2, that's mate. That's a hanging knight. More importantly, this king is actually totally safe. The king will dance out of the way over here, and black will win. It took 57 moves. It was a stressful game, but ultimately, he gets it done. He gets it done. Whew. Now, meanwhile, Gukesh is in his own battles. All right? Gukesh has won 5 in a row. And as you watch the story of Gukesh, who's just 19 years old, he just became the world champion, but there are still questions outstanding about his rapid and blitz play. His rapid rating, 2654. Is that just a question of it wasn't his focus thus far? Is it a matter of intuition? Is it a matter of simply not playing enough tournaments? Well, he has proven just about everybody wrong. And in this tournament, not only has he had dominant positions against almost every single player, with the exception of the one loss, he's also been up on time. Now, Wesley So is one of the most solid players, period. Let's look at Gukesh's game. He goes for a ready Larson thing, a6. So there's no bishop b5. Now we have c4. Provoking the move d4, which is played. Gukesh plays bishop a3. This is clearly world championship preparation. Queen b6 defends the pawn. Now we have g3. Quite clear, Gukesh wants to go bishop g2 and castle. Knight c6, bishop g2, and now the best move for black is probably to just take as much central space as possible. Another computer idea is h5, but we have bishop g4 played by Wesley. Look at the time. 6 minutes already spent by black, clearly thinking on his own. h3 pushes the bishop back. And from the opening, this is the position that we have to work with. White has key squares in the center that he's going to look to exploit. He's going to try to push the bishop back. It's another possibility. Maybe he'll do something like a queen c2, just get out of the way. This pawn is under pressure. Gukesh has won the opening battle, for sure. But how is he going to put away one of the most solid and defensive players? Right? e6. Develops the knight. Puts the queen here. He's going to put the rooks in the middle in some way. Wesley now plays a crazy move. I think Wesley didn't like that knight f6 would come in, and there are some g4 ideas and g5 maybe. He goes f5 here. f5. A really, really dynamic move, but it weakens the position. It weakens squares. It creates a massive weakness on e6. Gukesh now immediately rotates the queen over to c2 to try to go knight e2, knight f4, and jump around with the horses. Queen c2 is a very intriguing move, and Gukesh is up 7 minutes on the clock. Like I said, he's not just outplaying the veterans, the guys that are like in their 30s and have been top players for a decade. He's also up on time. He's not overthinking. Knight g5 immediately going to exploit the pawn on e6, and now we see the second idea, right? He's going to jump in here with the horses. The bishop is powerful. It feels like white is just pressuring everything in black's position, and either black is going to defend correctly and kick him out or fall apart. So first we kick the knight out, but now there are a lot of weaknesses. The pawn again, knight f4, knight e5, all these ideas, and Wesley makes a mistake. Down to 7 minutes versus 16. The time management is perhaps the most wicked part here. And Gukesh, very simple, attacks the queen, Wesley drops back, and knight f4. He walks voluntarily into a fork because he's going to take the bishop, knight takes h5, and when this happens, he just brings the bishop back, pinning the knight to the rook. So the rook goes here, and the knight comes back. And now white is dominating. Why is white dominating? First of all, 2 bishops on a completely open board. Second of all, black's king is in the middle forever. Third of all, we're probably going to be winning a pawn quite soon. Rook g8, just pawn takes h4. I mean, we're up a pawn. And there's no way for black to exploit anything. If the pawn goes to e5, we'll just come back and replace. That's exactly what happens. Well, I might even go knight d5. Why not? But knight e2, Gukesh plays the best move. e4, white is totally safe. These are weak. Rook is coming to d1. Black is never going to get the king out of the middle. The knight goes to c6. Gukesh takes on f5. He's now 2 pawns up. Wesley tries to get his king out of the middle. I mean, he does, but he's down material. Now we take the knight, and we just go rook d1. There is a 3rd pawn hanging. We are trading rooks. There is a 4th pawn hanging. Wesley so plays queen e5. Gukesh is now up 3 pawns. Wesley sacrifices, goes for counterplay. Beautiful counter-attacking move and activating the rook. Knight back to g4. This is just not good enough. Pawn takes, rook takes, queen trade, rook c5 hangs. Gukesh is in conversion mode. Queen f7, queen f4 check. Wesley so resigns. Gukesh just absolutely obliterated one of the most solid players in the world. He played an incredible game. He picked maybe the best moment to pounce because, you know, in the early rounds of the tournament, you're kind of like feeling out. You're playing very solidly. He gets Wesley into a complicated game, gets him thinking very early about his moves. The position gets imbalanced. And, you know, Gukesh, there is like this notion that, you know, 2650 Rapid is not elite yet, but I really think it's just that he hasn't played that much Rapid. He handled this position flawlessly. Within like 6 moves, he was just totally winning. Totally winning. And he converted it so seamlessly. He wins again. He wins another game. Dude just can't stop winning. Magnus is winning to try to catch up. He's in 2nd and 3rd. Duda is scoring as well. But Gukesh just can't stop winning. Now, I'm going to show you one little interlude game. Fabiano Caruana made a comeback on the 3rd day of the Rapid. And we love Fabi around here. It's July 4th. You know, we got to give the Americans something to cheer about. We have a King's Indian defense. And Fabi in this game played in a very solid way with f3, h3, disallowing black from getting play, giving up his light squared bishop, but putting all the pawns on the light squares. Šarić in this game tried to play dynamic, creating play on the center, creating play on b2, etc. Bishop back to f2. Fabi gave him the pawn. He can't take it. Your queen's going to get trapped. So queen a6 and a4. Look at this nice move. Almost everything on a light square in white's position. Black really struggling. If you don't succeed with f5, you don't have any more pawn breaks in the black position. So Fabi really trying to neuter the King's Indian here. Look at this b3. This is nasty stuff. Nasty business here. And a roll of the dice from Šarić. He didn't have to go e4, but I think he was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do here because white's next move is g4, and then I can't move my knight or my bishop. I mean, he could go knight e8 and play for f5. That's probably what he should do, but he rolls the dice with e4. Fabi just takes it, and now we try to go for counterplay, but Fabiano just gives up the rook and plays bishop to d4. And this is bad news, because knight f6 isn't coming, and nobody can stop it. Šarić plays bishop takes a4. Fabi plays knight f6 check. Knight e8 check. You have to block. The knight comes back to take the pawn. Now there is no way to defend against the discovered attack. Classy move. Castling on the 26th move, just like we teach the beginners. Rook to g7, queen to h4. Now it's just a matter of time. The knights come in, hunt out the king, and in this position, Šarić resigns, because if king g8, there are multiple ways to win, but queen g4 is lethal, hits the rook, discovered threat on the king. A beautiful game, and a game that shows you how to really take the fun out of the king's Indian defense if your rating is 2756 rapid and 780 classical. But luckily, you all don't have to worry about this. And there were other ways that black could have played the position, of course, but Fabiano won a couple of games on the last day to climb up the rankings. This game, speaking of Gukesh, by the way, Gukesh had this was the only game he won on the last day. He made a couple of draws. Now, this was the last game of the entirety of the Rapid. I told you at the beginning of the video, I'm going to show you one last Magnus game before you go celebrate fireworks. Just be safe out there. If you're not celebrating, you know, then just enjoy your July 4th or 5th whenever you're watching this. Now, this was a weird one. So Magnus started the game with knight c3, which I just found extremely funny. Knight c3 on the first move. You don't see that very often at top level. I mean, they're generally moving their pawns out or that knight. Knight c3 is very mild disrespect. All right. And after d5, we got a London, a Jobava London, and this is what Magnus played against Gukesh in their classical game that he managed to win. c5. All normal. Bishop d3. And now the same concept that was played in the game by Gukesh, which is this bishop to g4 move. Magnus goes c3, e6, you know, plays queen d2 so that the bishop pin doesn't matter anymore to Magnus. Clearly had ideas to go here, which is why Gukesh, Anish Giri is backing up. Knight g3, bishop g6, and we get a very simple and relatively boring game as the boys trade everything, and this is the position. Now, Magnus has beaten many, many people throughout his career in these types of positions, right? And it's the last day of the tournament. You're kind of expecting the comeback. He plays rook e1, rook e3, rook e1, and Anish goes e5. Now we just have this big battle in the center. That pawn is looked at by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Excuse me, 9 things are staring at e5. Clearly the hotbed of the position, right? So g4 pushes out the rook. You couldn't take this pawn. There was knight g5, and then the rook would take the rook. Pawn takes, knight takes. When I saw this position, I was like, okay, I expect this game to go on probably like 50 more moves. Little did I know it would go on about 100 more moves. 100 more moves from here. Typical Magnus endgame. Equal material, enough pawn imbalances, enough king positioning imbalances. Let's see the man go to work. Let's see Magnus return to form and win the endgame. b5, rook d3. He has made a career of beating guys in his generation and slightly younger than him in positions like this. Maybe not so much guys like Nodjibek, Gukesh, Prague, Alireza, but this is the Magnus effect in full force. g5, even Hikaru. King g2. Totally equal position, but the eval bar does not matter. Queen d3, rook e8, king f1, rook e5. We're just going to play chess. As opposed to the other game that we've been playing. First, we're going to chip away. Now the guy has 2 isolated pawn weaknesses. Now we're going to play queen d1. We're repositioning. We're threatening that we're going to advance over there. We're also bleeding the clock. Guys' nervous systems are going to get lower as the time gets lower. Queen d6. We transform into an endgame? Maybe not. Now somehow Magnus is better. Like, it literally feels like he's done nothing, but he's better. He has winning chances. Rook e2, rook d3. He now is attacking the king very directly. The rook has to go back. Queen is threatening everything. It's a very unpleasant position for black. Now the move h4 and g5 are very good. Okay, maybe rook d3, fine, rook e5. There's pawn breaks in the position. Now guys are at a minute 50 each. Now anything is going to happen. Kind of insane we have to play 70 more moves. Rook e8, king g1. Okay, Anish could have just shuffled, but he decides, you know what? I'm going to force the issue. That actually is the best move. But now we have an opening of the black king. The queen recentralizes. Queen e6. At some point, the boys are going to go below a minute. It's going to get really tense. Now we have a rook endgame. Okay, this has to just be a draw, right? Maybe, but maybe not. Not so fast. Now Magnus is a pawn up. Suddenly, Magnus is a pawn up. Now, the problem for Magnus is if the rook was behind the pawn, he would be winning. But you're not going to have enough time to do that because black puts his rook behind the pawn. So now you have to stay protecting the pawn, right? You're going to push the pawn all the way. You're threatening to check the king and at some point promote, which is why black needs to put the king right there. This is all well known, all good stuff. 65 moves. We got double the game remaining. Now Magnus runs the king over here. The rook cannot get off the b file. It has to stay on the b file. Now we start running the king up the board. King c4, king d5. Oh, now we are running to those pawns. Wait a minute. How are we going to defend those pawns? Is it even possible to defend those pawns? Black is going to have to make a decision. King h5, king h7, rook f8. And now Magnus wins both pawns. From a position of complete equality, we have created an endgame of f and h. Now you might be wondering, why is this a draw? It is. An h pawn and a king is a draw, but believe it or not, an h and an f pawn are also a draw. Black needs to hide the rook on the opposite corner, be ready for side checks, be ready for back checks, and keep the king somewhere over here. It is not an easy endgame to defend, and it's not an easy endgame to defend against the best endgame player of all time. But so far, he has not had many winning chances. Rook b5, rook f5. Anish doing those side checks, pushing back the king, rook g5. The way white wins this is usually by sacrificing one of the pawns and running the king and the f pawn up the board. It's not easy for black to choose where to defend, and oftentimes if you defend the wrong way, the pawns both end up making progress. So rook g8, king h7, rook g3. We are now crossing the 90th move threshold. Magnus hasn't made much progress. Overloading that nervous system, maybe. Rook b5. At some point, we're going to have to make a pawn move. There it is. Now white's running. King f5. Now white has some winning chances. This is white's 100th move. King g7, rook g6. Which way do you go? Maybe they're both a draw. Rook g3, king g4. We got to make progress again with the pawn at some point. There it is. King f5. It's still a draw. Anish is defending it the way you're supposed to defend it, but sometimes you make a mistake. King g7, rook e7, king h6, rook e6, rook e3. We're 112 moves into this game, but we are approaching a very important moment. Rook b3, rook g, right? h5, rook g1, rook g6. Now, where do you move the king? We go there. Okay, now we go back. We simply move the king back. Rook g6, king f6. Now, what do you do here? You do not give a check. That is not what you do. You needed to not allow the king to get to g5 so easily. White needs to play f5 first, because that way the king is not going to have much shelter from the checks and the counterattacks. So what's interesting is that if you literally just leave the rook here and don't do anything, it's a draw. But when you give a check and then you do this, now because white never committed the pawn, white can run the king over here. And apparently it's the rook over here. And apparently this is winning because the king gets to f6 and then the pawn gets to f5. You need a rook on the side, a king on f6, and a pawn on f5. But the way this is happening, Magnus plays this first, and it looks like everything is right, but the rook is not gone. You needed to put the rook here, the pawn here, and the king here. That is white's winning configuration. Magnus, 120 moves into this game. He almost pulled it off, but he misses a chance, and now the king is blocking the rook. It still looks like it's winning. It still looks like it's winning. King h6, rook e2. He's going to get the rook there. Rook a6 is another blunder. 2 checks from Anish in the span of 5 moves, very natural moves, are wrong, because if the king runs forward, then you can shield. And what Magnus missed here is that king f7 is the winning move. He went here thinking the rook moves and then I move my king, but it's wrong. You needed to go king f7 with the simple idea that if king takes pawn, f6 wins. You snuck the pawn through and that's it. I think what Magnus forgot about is that king g5 is not a draw because of the incredible h6. I told you you need to sack a pawn. If king f5, this is pretty easy. You give a check. It doesn't really matter where the king goes. Like, let's say it goes here. The pawn just promotes. King g8. Rook is using it as a shield. The reason why this is winning is that if rook h6, you have king g7. The king can't take the pawn. Rook is coming with g2 and f2. And the pawn is promoting. Now, the craziest thing is, I feel like Prime Magnus goes king f7. He sees king f7, king g7, h6, king g5, h6. But he goes here. And suddenly, the players have to make a draw because Anish wins the proper pawn. And this is not a winning endgame. This is not a winning endgame for white. If h6, rook g6 check forces the king here. And this is a well-known draw. The king now cannot leave. The king can't leave. Rook g7, you keep the rook on the 6th rank. And the king can never abandon the pawn. And if this, I don't know, you can probably even give a check. You can probably do nothing. So in an unbelievable turn of events, Magnus actually got the winning chances that he was hoping for, but now it's just a draw. And the game went 133 moves. I remember looking at this like, if Magnus wins this game, he's got his mojo back. He's got the mojo back. He spent 120 moves deep in this endgame to create a winning chance on the 123rd move. I mean, this is this Magnus right here. This is the 5-set Djokovic, all right? Like, this is the guy that plays into the 4th, 5th, 6th hour, not under this time control. But then he didn't win it. He didn't. I was like, oh my God, he's winning. And then he didn't win it 125 moves. So ultimately, the last game of the tournament, Magnus versus Giri, ends in a draw. Now, we had some results, like Ali Reza beat Wesley. Nojibek is really struggling in this tournament. He is on in the last place with 6 points, with 3 defeats and 6 draws. Remember, it's 2 points for a win. Gukesh wins the Rapid. I actually wish he was crowned the champion of the Rapid. He won the Rapid with 6 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. I mean, dude won 6 games. Gukesh won more games than, like, the next 3 people combined. He won more games than Duda, Carlsen, and Prague combined, which is crazy. Now they have to play Blitz. Blitz is a double round robin. So Blitz, they play 9 games, and then they play another 9 games. So we get to see 2 more games between Magnus and Gukesh. I have no idea what to expect. Gukesh has played unbelievable chess at 25 minutes per player. Is he going to continue this as the time gets lower and lower? I think the Blitz is 3+2. It's 5+2. Okay, so that's actually long Blitz. That's long Blitz. It's not 3+2. It's not 3+0. So we're going to see. And if Gukesh if Gukesh dominates the Blitz, I mean, that's going to send ripples through the chess world. Like, we have a man properly challenging for the title of best player in the world. But we're about to see. We're about to see. I'm very excited to see how Gukesh continues to improve and get better. Because none of these young players, none of the young guys, Dude is a little older, Prague, we got Firouzja in here, right, Nojibek. Nobody has laid a full claim to being the next bright star of the next generation. But Gukesh is well on his way. This is a crazy result. 2650 Rapid was his rating before the tournament. He's up like 2690. I wish he can play more Rapid. I wish all these guys, we see them playing more classical Rapid and Blitz. So super impressive stuff. Magnus wins. 1 game on the second day. Same with Gukesh. Blitz to come tomorrow. Can't wait. Happy 4th of July. Check out the new King's Indian course on Chessly. And other great stuff is on the way, like the July Challenge winning an exclusive badge. And get out of here.